Greetings, fellow Obsidizens. Welcome to another video in the Obsidian for Noobs video series featuring tutorials, tips, and tools for new users of the Obsidian Personal Knowledge Management software. In today's video, I'm going to take a deep dive into the topic of canvases in Obsidian. It's a vast topic with lots to cover, so let's jump right in. Here's an outline of the topics that will be covered in this video. We'll start naturally with what is a canvas, then what can be placed in a canvas, the concept of a card, which is the most fundamental component of a canvas, how to create a canvas, how to add content to a canvas, how to work with cards in a canvas, the card context toolbar, how to connect cards, the multiple card selection context toolbar, how to group cards, the canvas right-click menu, navigating around a canvas, and then I'll discuss some canvas use cases and I'll demonstrate a real-world example that I use myself. But the way I'm going to approach this tutorial is I'll first explain the basic concepts in detail, and then I'll demonstrate everything in an Obsidian Vault. This way you'll understand what's happening as I demonstrate. I think this approach is better than having me begin by bouncing around all over Obsidian in a confused mess of activity and leaving you wondering what the heck I'm doing. Okay, with that as the plan, let's dive in. Okay, what is a canvas? The word canvas in general parlance refers to a panel of fabric upon which an artist creates a painting. In broader usage, canvas can refer to the background against which things happen. In Obsidian, a canvas plays the role that is similar to both of these definitions. Basically, an Obsidian canvas is an expansive space that extends infinitely, both vertically and horizontally. It's like a gigantic board on which you can place almost anything in any location. What can be placed in a canvas? The basic rule is that pretty much anything you can put in a note can be put in a canvas. You can put text in a canvas, you can put Obsidian notes in there, images, PDF documents, videos, audio files, bases, and web pages. If you put a video or an audio file, Obsidian provides a player for those files so that you can play the video or play the audio directly in the canvas, just as you can do in a note. The main difference is that in a note, you can only arrange its contents linearly and vertically, whereas in a canvas, you can put its contents arranged or positioned in any way you desire. There is no restrictive structure to a canvas, and as I noted earlier, a canvas is infinite in scope, both vertically and horizontally. But there's something else unique going on with a canvas that I haven't mentioned yet. All of the things that can be put onto a canvas, media files, PDFs, notes, etc., are actually placed in a special container on the canvas, and that container is called a card. As I mentioned earlier, cards are the basic component of the canvas. They're containers for holding things that you place on the canvas. Anything that you can place on a canvas, text, media files, PDFs, notes, bases, are all placed within a card. You cannot place text or anything else directly onto a canvas. Anything you put on a canvas must go in a card. There is a special kind of card called a text-only card. You create these by typing text directly into the card. These cards are also called empty cards because they appear empty when you first create them. Text-only cards are independent objects that do not reference any file. You simply type directly into the card. You can apply markdown in text-only cards. You can create links there, just as you can do in a note. Even the note's right-click menu functions within a text-only card. However, unlike other items in a vault, text-only cards do not exist as files in your vault. They exist solely in the canvas in which they are created. How to create a canvas? To create a canvas in Obsidian, you can do any one of the following. Click the Create New Canvas icon in the ribbon. That's at the extreme left of the user interface. You can right-click on a folder in the navigation panel and select New Canvas, and it will create a new canvas in that folder. Or you can open the command palette by pressing the Ctrl and P keys on your keyboard and selecting Canvas Create New Canvas. Once a canvas is created, it will appear in the navigation panel as a file with a canvas label attached to it, as you see in the image on the screen. So over here are files in a vault. The first one is a base, as you can see. This is a canvas, and it's designated by the word canvas. And this one is a note. Adding content to a canvas. To add content to a canvas, do any one of the following. Use the icons at the bottom of the canvas. Click or drag on the icons. I have bottom in quotation marks because since the canvas is infinite, both vertically and horizontally, there technically is no bottom to it. So by bottom, I mean here the bottom of the visible screen. And you can see in the image here the icons. There are 3 icons on the bottom of a canvas. The first one, if you click on it or drag it, will add an empty card. The second one will add a note from your vault. If you click on that second icon, it will open up a list of all the notes in your vault, and you select the note that you want to add to the canvas. And the third icon is to add media from your vault. If you click on this icon, it will open a listing of all the media files in your vault, the images, the videos, and so forth. And you select the particular media file that you want to place in the canvas. You can add a blank note to a canvas by clicking on the note icon and then pressing the Shift and Enter keys on your keyboard. And again, I'm going to demonstrate all of this once I go through the explanations. In addition to using these icons at the bottom of the canvas, some other ways you can add content to a canvas are, going back to our bullet list at the top, you can right-click in a blank space of the canvas and then select the desired item from the pop-up menu. You can drag and drop a file, a note, an image, PDF, etc., onto the canvas. And you can do that from within Obsidian, in other words, from within your vault, or from outside Obsidian. So I can take an image file that's in, let's say, the assets folder of my vault and drag it onto the canvas. Or I can open up Windows File Explorer outside of my vault and drag an image file from Windows itself into the canvas. And in a similar manner, you can copy and paste files onto a canvas, again, from within Obsidian or from outside of Obsidian. Okay, working with cards on a canvas. There are several parts of this phase of the tutorial. As I mentioned, cards are the most fundamental component of canvases, so you can imagine there's a lot to say about cards and a lot to do with them. So first we're going to talk about basic card operations. To move a card on a canvas, you hover the cursor over the card until the cursor becomes an open hand, then left-click and drag the card. To make a copy of a card, hold the Control key down on the keyboard and drag on the card, and you'll make an exact duplicate of that card. Then there's the concept of selecting a card. Before you can do anything with a card, in other words, before you can edit it, delete it, resize it, you must first select the card, and this is done by simply left-clicking on the card. Cards that are not selected have a gray border. In the image at the bottom, the one on the right is an unselected card because it has a gray border. Once you click on the card, the border becomes purple, and the card is now selected. And as I said, you can edit it, you can delete it, you can resize it. When you select a card, not only does the border become purple, but a context toolbar appears above the card. And we'll talk about that next. Okay, working with cards, the card context toolbar. As you just saw, when you select the card, the border turns purple, and this little toolbar appears above the card. That card context toolbar allows you to perform 3 actions on the card. The first icon lets you delete the card. The second icon lets you set a color for the card. Let's talk about that color selection, which is shown here in the image on the right. The first option is a gray circle. That is no color. That's the card's default state. Then you have the option for 6 particular colors. And then if you click on this last rainbow circle, it'll open up a standard color selector, and you could select one of zillions of colors available. When you choose a color, the card's border takes on that color, and the card's interior takes on a diffuse shading of that color. And again, you'll see this when I demonstrate it later. So this is a nice way for you to designate particular cards as having particular meanings. For example, you might want to, if you have a very busy canvas with a lot of items on it, you might decide to color all of your notes red so that they stand out with the red border and the diffuse red interior. And you might want to color all your PDFs green or something to that effect. The last icon in the card toolbar is zoom to selection. If you click on that icon, it brings the selected card into focus. which means it brings the card to the center of the main area and also zooms in on it. In other words, enlarges it. So again, when you select the card, its frame turns from gray to purple. The card context toolbar appears above it. And now you can delete that card, you can set a color for the card, and you can zoom in on the card. That zoom to selection is extremely handy for situations in which a canvas becomes excessively crowded with content. Zooming lets you easily recover the focus to a specific card of interest, particularly if you want to do some editing or work on it. Okay, part 3 of working with cards in a canvas. A unique feature of cards is the ability to connect them using arrow-tipped lines. This allows users to visualize a directional relationship between cards, a useful feature when creating flowcharts, mind maps, and timelines. To connect two cards, do the following. First, hover the mouse pointer over any edge of a card. A dot will appear on the edge. Drag that dot to another card. As you drag, an arrow will appear, pointing in the direction you are dragging. When you release the mouse button, the arrow connects to the targeted card, as you can see in the diagram at the bottom. You can see this gray arrow going from the book cover to my logo. Once you draw an arrow connecting two cards, you have the option to label that arrow. You can do this by double-clicking on the line. This opens a text box in the center of the line where you can type a label. It also opens a contextual toolbar for the connecting line and its label. There's lots of contextual toolbars in Canvases because there are many different things you can do. You type inside that box to create the label for the line, and then once you click outside the label, you set it. You can then double-click on the label later to edit it or to delete it. And you can see the contextual toolbar for the line and the label here. Let's go through that label contextual toolbar. The first one, the trash can, lets you delete the connecting line. The color icon lets you set the color of both the connecting line and its label. The arrow direction icon lets you choose among 3 directional options for the connecting line. You can select a non-directional option, which means no arrowheads, a unidirectional option, which is 1 arrowhead, and that arrowhead is pointing in the direction it was when you created the line. Or you can select a bidirectional arrow, which is 2 arrowheads. Please note that the unidirectional option is set to the direction that was opted for when the line was first drawn. If you want to change that arrow to the opposite direction, you must delete it and redraw it. In other words, drag it in the other direction. Okay, so again, to connect two cards, hover over the edge of a card, you'll see a dot appear. Click on that dot and drag to another card. An arrow will be created from the source card to the target card. If you double-click on that connecting arrow, a box will open up in the center of the arrow where you can put in a label, and also a contextual toolbar for the arrow and the label will open as well. And that toolbar lets you delete the arrow and label, select a color for them, choose among 3 directional options for the arrow. You also can delete the label or edit the label. Okay, part 4 of working with cards in a canvas, navigating connected cards and grouping cards. If you right-click on a line connecting 2 cards, a window will open offering you the option to follow connection. Clicking this option will bring the other card, that is, the card furthest away from the point on the line where you clicked, into center focus. This is useful in a situation where you are looking at one of a pair of connected cards that are far apart on a complex or busy canvas, where you might find it difficult to locate the other connected card amid the mass of objects populating the canvas. The ability to follow connection lets you quickly and easily locate the targeted connected card. Since canvases are infinite in scope, both vertically and horizontally, you often find that they become very, very busy, very, very populated, and it can become quite easy to lose track of particular cards. And there are many options provided by Obsidian to let you find cards and focus in on them, and this is one of them, follow connection. You also have the option to group cards. Obsidian lets you group cards together to facilitate card organization and referencing on a canvas. You must first select the cards to be grouped. To select the cards, simply drag the cursor so as to encompass the cards. A purple rectangle will appear as you begin dragging. Encompass all the cards you want in the group in that rectangle, then release the mouse button. When you do, a selection context toolbar will appear that lets you create a group of the selected cards. So this is another contextual toolbar. Please be aware that merely selecting the cards does not make them a group. A group must be specifically created from the context menu. Once a group is created, it will be enclosed in a colored rectangle and offer the option to give the group a title and also present a group context toolbar that allows operations to be performed on the group as a whole. That contextual toolbar that opens when you first select the cards to be in a group provides options in addition to letting you create the group. It allows you to delete the group, set the card's color within the group, zoom in on the group, and align the selected cards in a variety of ways. The contextual toolbar that opens when you actually create the group lets you ungroup the group cards, set a color for the group, zoom in on the group, align the cards within the group in a variety of different ways, edit the group title, or set an image as the background for the group. The Canvas right-click menu. If you right-click in a blank space on a canvas, a menu will open that allows you to perform a variety of operations in the canvas. And as you can see on the screen, this is an example of that Canvas right-click menu. It lets you add a card, lets you add a note from the vault, lets you add media from the vault, lets you add a web page, lets you create a group. There's an undo option, a paste option, and a few others. I'm not going to go to snap to grid and snap to objects. The read-only option, as you might guess, makes that canvas read-only, and it prevents you from editing or changing anything on the canvas. Now, when you select add a note from the vault, it'll give you a list of all the notes in your vault, and you select the one you want. Similarly with the media. If you select add media from the vault, it gives you a list of all the media files in your vault, and you select the one you want to add to the canvas. Adding a web page opens up a box in which you can type or paste the URL for a website. It requires the HTTP : / as part of the web address. If you just begin with www, it will not accept it, and you'll get a red warning sign. Okay, let's talk about navigating around a canvas. I've mentioned many times that because the canvas is infinite, you could be faced with a situation where there are lots of things populating the canvas, and it gets very busy and very confusing. Given this massive scope of available space, coupled with the multitude of different things that can be placed on a canvas, you might easily find yourself in a situation where a canvas is so packed with stuff that it extends far beyond the viewing window. When this happens, being able to comfortably navigate this huge space becomes critically important. Thankfully, Obsidian's creators clearly expected this and provided useful tools for dealing with it. Canvases offer navigation tools specifically designed to handle the unique navigation requirements of such a vast workspace. Imagine a canvas workspace as described above, that is, an expansive canvas full of cards, note cards, text-only cards, media cards, PDF cards, that extends far beyond the viewing window of the canvas. And then imagine we want to work on a specific card in that busy workspace. To do so will require us to first find that card on the canvas and then bring that card into focus so we can work on it. In order to be able to see beyond the confines of the viewing window, we have two choices. We can move a different portion of the canvas into view, this is called panning, or we can change the size of the canvas to fit within the viewing window, and this is called zooming. And I'll discuss those in detail now. Panning a canvas refers to moving the canvas vertically or horizontally so as to bring into view the further reaches of the canvas that lie outside the current viewing area, and thus enable us to see the cards that are located there. Please note that when you pan, you are moving the canvas itself. You're not moving around the interior of the canvas, you are moving the canvas itself. To pan a canvas, you can do any one of the following actions. Press and hold the spacebar, then left-click the mouse and drag the canvas in any direction. When you press the spacebar, the cursor will turn into an open hand. When you left-click, the hand will close, indicating that you are grabbing the canvas. And then you drag it in whichever direction you want to look. You can also press and hold the mouse wheel, or the middle mouse button, and you'll see a closed hand, and then drag the canvas in any desired direction. And finally, you can use the mouse wheel to scroll vertically, or hold the Shift key down and use the mouse wheel to scroll horizontally. Zooming a canvas. The alternative to moving different portions of the canvas into the viewing window is to zoom in or zoom out on the canvas. Zooming out lets you see more of the canvas real estate and get a big picture perspective. Zooming in focuses on a particular area of the canvas or on a particular card. To zoom in or zoom out on a canvas, you can do any one of the following. Press and hold the spacebar, then use the mouse wheel to zoom in or out. Press and hold the control key and use the mouse wheel to zoom in or out. Or click the plus, zoom in, or minus, zoom out icons in the upper right corner of the canvas. And again, I'll demonstrate all of this shortly. Now, when you start zooming around, you can easily get lost what you're zooming. So to reset the zoom to its normal zoom perspective, in other words, the zoom level at which the canvas first opens, click the reset zoom icon in the upper right corner of the canvas. And in the image here, you can see what's available in that upper right corner, in the upper right corner of a canvas. There's a gear which opens canvas settings. Here's that plus sign that lets you zoom in. This lets you reset to the standard normal zoom perspective. This one is zoom to fit. That zooms the canvas so that every item on the canvas is visible. And if there are lots of items on the canvas, then your images of those items are going to be very small. And finally, the minus is to zoom out. These icons appear in the upper right corner of the canvas. Canvas settings, zoom in, reset zoom to its normal state, zoom to fit. In other words, zoom so that everything on the canvas is visible, and then minus to zoom out. And then you have undo and redo. Okay, it's time to demonstrate all of this stuff in an actual Obsidian canvas. So here I am in my demo vault. I have a demo canvas here. Before I start showing you the particulars, let's first talk about the various ways to create a canvas. One way is to go to the ribbon and select Create New Canvas. You can see it over here in the ribbon on the left side. If I click that, it'll create a new canvas. Another option is to right-click on a folder and select New Canvas, and I'll get a canvas in that folder. And the third option is to call up the command palette with Control P and type Canvas, and then select Create New Canvas. So those are the three ways to create a canvas in Obsidian. Okay, again, I'm in this demo canvas that I created. The title that you give the canvas appears at the top. And again, there is no top. There really is no bottom because it's infinite. But the title will always stay visible. And these three icons on the bottom will always stay visible as well in a kind of a top and bottom-ish location. And as I pointed out earlier, the canvas in your navigation panel on the left will have the word canvas next to it so you can distinguish it from notes and other things. Here's a base, here's an image file, here's another canvas. Okay, let's first look at these bottom icons. As I mentioned earlier, the first one lets you add a card. It says drag to add card, but you can just click on it if you want. That will add an empty card, and you could type text into that card. I'll do that now. When I create the card, it's selected. Remember, when a card's selected, it has the purple border and you have the toolbar on the top. If I click off the card, it's unselected. You see the gray border and there's no toolbar. So I click it to select it. And if I want, I can type text directly into the card. You can use Markdown on the text within the card. So I make that italics. You can resize a card by hovering over an edge until a double arrow appears. And you can, this is the connecting button. We'll do that later. When I get the double arrow, I can resize the card. If I right-click, I get basically the right-click menu that I see in a note. So, for example, I can select these three words and go to Paragraph and pick Bullet List and create a bullet list. You can put headings. You can do bold, strike through. Again, all the stuff you can do in a note. There's the headings, bullet list, numbered list. We can insert a table. So an empty card is like a note in a way. You can put actual notes in the canvas, and we'll do that too. But the empty card is like a note. Now remember, these text-only cards do not exist as a file in your vault, so they will not show up in the backlinks section on the right here. They strictly exist only within the canvas in which they are created. All right, so that's a text-only card, or an empty card when it starts, and then a text-only card once we put stuff in it. Let's get rid of this thing. I'm going to be putting quite a few things in here, so I want to make this a little smaller. To move a card, if you hover over the card, you'll see the hand. If I left-click and hold, the hand grabs the card, and then I can drag it anywhere on the canvas. Like going back to the icons on the bottom, the second one says drag to add a note from the vault. Again, I can just click. I don't have to drag. If I click, it'll open up a listing of all the notes in my vault, and I could select the one that I want to put. So here's the note. And again, I have the context toolbar. It's automatically selected when I create it. I can scroll through it. This is a note that's in my vault. And I can delete it. I can change the color. I can zoom in on it, and I can edit it. But we can just double click in there to edit it as well. And the third icon on the bottom is to add a media file. If I click on this, a listing of all the media files in my vault will open. You can see images. There's a video file. This is the intro to my all my YouTube videos. Let's select that and put that in here. If I select it, I get the card context toolbar. Notice this is a card, this is a note, this is a video, it's in a card. Everything that you put in a canvas is in a card. Let me select another media file. I'll do a picture now. Here's an image, a PNG image. It's also in a card because you can see the card context toolbar. And I can resize it. Notice that it resizes proportionally. No matter where, I don't have to grab it in the corner like in graphics programs or in Word. No matter where I grab it, it's a proportional resizing. So I've got a note from my vault. I've got a text-only card. I've got a video. I've got an image. I could play the video here. Remember what I said? In order to do anything to a card, you first have to select it. So now I cannot click that thing, but once I select the card, I can then play it. And again, I could resize this if I want to. Remember, one of the other ways to add things to a canvas is that you can simply drag them on. Now the PDF opens up in its own PDF viewer. Lets me go through the various pages. I can also scroll. I can resize it. Let me move the image out so we have that there. So we have an image, a PDF, a video, a note, and a text-only card. These are the three icons at the bottom of a canvas. Add an empty card, add a note from your vault, add a media file from your vault. And you saw that we can use these to add things. I can drag from the side here. I can drag from outside of Obsidian, from Windows File Explorer, from a graphics program. If I want to delete a card, I can select the delete button in the context menu, or I can select the card and simply hit the delete key on my keyboard, which I'll do now. And that deletes the card. You can even put a bases base database on a card. This is a bases database of this complete vault. And I could resize this as well. Okay, so that's how you add content to a canvas. To move, grab it, and drag it around. You can resize it by hovering over an edge or a corner, and when the double arrows appear, just resize. If you want to copy a card, hold the Control key down on the keyboard and drag the card. And you make a duplicate of it. All right, now let's talk about some of the other things in the card context toolbar. We know that the trash can deletes the card. Here's selecting the color. Now this is in its basic state. It's got the purple border, that's Obsidian's purple color, but basically this is like a no color option. In fact, let me do it with a text card. It'll be better. Let's do it here. So right now the gray is selected, in other words, no color. If I select one of the other colors, the border will take on that color, but also the interior of the card will take on a diffuse version of that color. So you can see now it's got the red border, and I don't know if you can tell, but within it's got a very light red color. There's green, and so forth. And if I want to, I can open up the color selector, and then I've got a zillion different options here. This zooms into the card. That brings the card to the center and enlarges it. So if I'm, I've got a million different things on my canvas, and I want to work on this card, I want to do some editing on it or add something to it, I can click the zoom to selection in the contextual toolbar, and it brings that card to the center. If things were smaller here, if you remember, these are the icons at the right that I mentioned. This is to zoom in. The minus is to zoom out. This zoom to fit, remember, brings everything, makes everything on the canvas visible. So let me do that now. And you can see everything has to be small to fit. Zoom to fit shows everything on your canvas all visible in the viewing window. So let's say I've got a million things on the canvas, and everything's busy, and I'm working like this, and now I want to work on this card. I simply click the zoom to selection, and it brings that card into the center and enlarges it somewhat so that I can work on it. So that's the purpose of this. And this is to edit the card. But again, I can just click in there and do that as well. I could double click in there and do that as well. All right, so when you select a card, the card contextual toolbar lets you delete it, select a color for it, zoom to it, or edit it. All right, let's talk about connecting cards now. Let's get rid of this thing. I'll get rid of the PDF. If I select a card and hover over an edge, I'll see a dot appear, and that's over any of the edges. I left-click on that dot and drag, and a connecting arrow is created. If I double-click on an arrow, a little box opens to let me label that connection. So I'll just put the word label in there for now. All right, you can type anything you want. And a contextual toolbar opens up for that arrow and that label. I can delete the arrow and the label. I can set a color for them. Let's do a different one. I can zoom in if I'm not zoomed already. I have a choice, remember, of 3 different line directions: no arrow, unidirection, which is the direction it is now, or bidirectional, which will be 2 arrowheads. So non-directional, I've got the line with no arrowhead. Unidirectional is what I had, the default, and bidirectional, 2 arrows. Remember, for unidirectional, you're only going to be able to get the direction you started in. If I want the arrow to go this way, I have to either create a new link or delete this one and redo it. This removes the label. That edits the label, or lets me create a new one if I removed it. And I can delete the arrow. Let's do this one. By hitting the delete key. Notice when I move this around, the arrow moves with it. All right, we also talked about grouping cards. Let me get rid of these. Let's make another one here. If I want to group these cards, I left-click anywheres on the canvas outside of these cards, and I enclose them in a rectangle. When I release the mouse button, I've selected the cards. They are not yet a group. I've simply selected the cards that I want to be in the group. In this new contextual menu that opens, now this is I call this the card selection contextual menu, because there are so many contextual menus in Canvases, right? This menu pops up when you select a bunch of cards that you want to put in a group. One of the options here is Create Group. Let me drag this guy out of the way. Let me do it again. Create Group. The group is created only when I click on this. So right now I've only selected the cards. I have not yet created the group. When I click this, they'll be encircled in a thicker rectangle, and an option will show up on the top to create a title for the group. And I can type a title in here now. And likewise, I could delete the group. I'm deleting the grouping, right? I'm not deleting the cards. I'm simply deleting the grouping that I created for them. So let's make that group again. Remember, I haven't created the group yet. I've just selected the cards. I click this. I've created the group. I can select a color for the group. Notice the frame and the title take on the color. This option lets me align everything in the group. And I have various options to do that. Let's pick align center. Align left. They're all on top of each other. Let's do align center. And let's undo the alignment. I'm pressing Control Z, going back to the original thing. This option lets me edit the label, in other words, the title for the group. And this option lets me set a background image. It'll show me all the pictures I have, all the image files I have in my vault, and I can set one as the background image. I'll remove the background. So again, to review here, let me delete the group. To group a bunch of cards, click outside, extend the rectangle until it encompasses all the cards you want in the group. At this point, you have only selected the cards. You have not yet created the group. To create the group, you must click Create Group in the contextual menu above. Now I have the group. I can give it a title. I can give it a color. I can zoom in on it. In other words, if I'm working over here and I want to bring this into focus, bring it to the center, I can align the cards within the group. I can edit it. I can edit the label, and I can set an image as the background. So that's grouping cards. Let me get rid of that group and get rid of this. Now, the Canvas right-click menu. If I right-click in a blank area of a canvas, I get all these options. I can add a card. That would be an empty card. I can add a note from the vault. I can add media. In other words, these first three options correspond to the three icons at the bottom. Add an empty card, add a note from the vault, add a media file from the vault. And with the second and third ones, I will get a list of all my notes or a list of all my media files that are in my vault, and I can select the one I want to add. Add web page. Let's look at that. I have to enter the URL here. If I do this, in other words, if I start with www, Obsidian won't take it. You have to have the http:// Now it's accepted. If I select save, what Obsidian will do is actually open up a card, in other words, a window with that website active in the canvas. So there it is. This is actually at the Google site now. And I could do a search in here. And go to that site. Naturally, I could increase the size of this. And so forth. And since this is a card, I have the card contextual toolbar. I can delete it. I can give it a color. I can focus in on it, and so forth. Again, the Canvases right-click menu, add a card, add a note from the vault, add a media file from the vault, add a web page, create a group. I have an undo option, a paste option. I'm not going to do these two. And read-only makes the canvas read-only, so I can't do anything to it. I can't move things. I can't edit things. I can only zoom. When I want to get out of read-only, I go up to these icons in the upper right, and I click on Disable Read-Only. Then I have my menus back. I can mess around with everything. Okay, let's talk about navigating around a canvas now. We spoke of panning and zooming. First, let's talk about panning. I can hold the space bar down on the keyboard and then left-click and grab and drag around the canvas. Now, I'm moving the canvas. Right? I'm not moving objects in the canvas. I'm moving the canvas itself. So again, if you have a very busy canvas with lots of cards and items on it, and they're spread out all over the place, and you want to get around to other areas, you want to access cards that are outside the viewing area, one option is hold the space bar down. As soon as I press that space bar, the mouse pointer turns into a hand. I left-click and hold. That hand grabs the canvas, and then I can drag around and go to other objects and other areas of the canvas. The other option is to use the mouse wheel. If I use the mouse wheel alone, I move around the canvas vertically. If I hold the Shift key down and scroll with the mouse wheel, it moves horizontally. So spacebar, grab and drag, or mouse wheel for vertical movement, Shift and mouse wheel for horizontal movement. That's panning. For zooming, I can hold the space bar down and use the mouse wheel to zoom in or zoom out. And remember, in the icons at the upper right, zoom to fit brings everything visible in the viewing window, and this resets to the normal viewing state and size. Another option for zooming is to use the control key and the mouse wheel, the same effect. So I can use the space bar on the mouse wheel or the control key and the mouse wheel. It's the same in either case. And finally, for zooming, I can use the plus and minus keys. The plus key is to zoom in. The minus key is to zoom out. And this returns to normal zoom state. So panning, you drag the canvas around to go to different areas of the canvas. Zooming, you can zoom in and zoom out. Okay, let's talk about some specific use cases for canvases. Canvases work well as a home page or an index for a vault. They can be used as flowcharts for software programs or for just general projects. They can be used for timelines. They can be used as a kind of a catch-all space to gather research. They can be used for mind mapping. That's to organize information non-linearly, and that's where the arrows really come in handy, to brainstorm ideas or to map out concepts. One way that I use canvases is as a virtual corkboard for fiction writing. I've mentioned in other videos that in addition to the Obsidian for Noobs book and the Obsidian Quick Reference book, I also write works of fiction. And one thing that fiction authors use a lot are corkboards. In the old days, they used an actual corkboard with index cards. They would pin the index cards to the corkboard. And they would use the index cards to summarize the chapters in their book or maybe to summarize scenes. And they could easily move the index cards around the corkboard if they wanted to reposition scenes or reposition chapters, and also use it to get a good quick gist of what's happening in their novel. I created a vault called the Writer's Workshop, and one of the things I have in that vault is a virtual corkboard, and I did that using a canvas, so I'll show you that now. Okay, I'm in my Writer's Workshop vault. Someday I'll make a video exclusively dealing with this. For now, I'll just give you a quick overview here. You can see in the navigation panel, I have a folder with chapter summary sheets. I have character profile sheets, quick reference sheets for the characters. Here's the corkboards, daily notes, manuscript, tables for characters, a lot of useful things for writers of fiction. But this is the virtual corkboard I've created. Let's go into that zoom to fit thing. And you can see this one is for chapters. You can make one for scenes. I just put this here basically as a title thing. I intend to have this link to a note that has basically like a help for corkboards. All the stuff I went through in this video actually about how to work with corkboards and so forth. But the main thing are these are the virtual index cards for the chapters. So chapter 1, I talk about what's happening in that chapter. By the way, this is for a book that I've written and is out there. It's published. It's available on Amazon. It's called Sherlock Holmes and the Time Machine. And that's exactly what it's about. It's a Sherlock Holmes adventure that brings Holmes and Watson together with the time machine, the H.G. Wells Time Machine. If you're interested in that, take a look for that book. But chapter 1, Holmes and Watson are sitting bored at Baker Street. Holmes is anxious and fidgety. A visitor, a mathematician, arrives with a job. Chapter 2a, Holmes and Watson visit the inventor's residence. They meet the inventor's niece there, and so on. And eventually gets to the point where they actually time travel into the future. But you can see the advantage of this, how this functions as a virtual corkboard. These are just little helpful things that I put at the bottom. But these are the actual chapter things. And as a writer, if you decide that you want to change the order of things, you can just move these cards around. That's what authors used to do in the old days with the actual corkboard and index cards. And if these cards were for scenes, it's even more likely you'd be moving things around. You might change the order of scenes. And actually you can type in here and, change some details. So that's where focus would come in. If I select this card, and use the zoom to selection, it brings that card into focus, and I could edit that card if I want to, add stuff, delete stuff, whatever the case is. So this is a really useful real-world case, a real-world application of Canvases as the virtual corkboard for writers of fiction. So there you have it, working with Canvases in Obsidian. Believe it or not, there's even more to Canvases than what I've covered here. But, as is always my intention with these videos, I've sought to provide you with enough information about Canvases to enable you to use them comfortably and productively. Canvases are visually attractive, multi-featured workspaces that offer the potential for a wide variety of interesting and useful applications. Give some serious thought to what use cases they might serve for you. Okay, fellow Obsidizens, that's all I have for now. I'll see you in the next video. Happy note-taking.